Welcome to Curiosity, the podcast where science meets wonder. Join us as we explore the fascinating, the innovative, and the unexpected, from the secrets of the cosmos to the marvels of everyday life. Each episode takes you on a journey to uncover the knowledge and stories that fuel our endless quest for understanding. Let your curiosity guide you.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We often analyze these complex, large-scale systems, global economies, historical movements, vast technological networks. But today, we're going to turn that lens inward. We are diving into probably the most complex, and I'd argue the most critically important system of all, you. Specifically, this fundamental biological truth that you are not a single static entity. You're not the same person at 8 a.m. as you are at 8 p.m.
That's the core realization we have to start with. It's a complete paradigm shift. Right now, as you're listening to this, your body is this bustling metropolis of timekeeping.
Thousands of tiny clocks.
Exactly. In your brain, your liver, your pancreas, your heart, and yes, even in your skin, thousands upon thousands of these microscopic clocks are ticking away.
Wow.
And they're organizing this incredibly complex, intricate dance that dictates, every single physiological process, from when you release certain hormones to cellular repair to neurotransmitter function, and even your mood stability.
It's like an internal, invisible choreography. And the science that's dedicated to understanding all of this is called chronobiology.
The study of biological time.
Right. And it dictates when your body is naturally primed for high alertness, when your blood pressure should surge, when your immune system is ready to fight off an infection.
When your metabolism is optimized for a meal, and when it desperately needs to shut down for repair. The 8 a.m. version of you is, chemically and physically, a profoundly different person from the 8 p.m. version.
And that biological reality just stands in such stark contrast to how we live now to modern life. We operate under this, this delusion that we can be perpetually on.
We do. We live on these erratic work schedules, erratic meal schedules. We bathe our eyes in this bright blue spectrum light from our screens at 2 in the morning.
And we just expect our bodies to function identically, whether it's noon or the middle of our biological night.
Right. The analogy we often use is, I think, a good one. If you imagine all those internal clocks as this massive, perfectly tuned symphony orchestra, we are basically demanding that the flutes and the strings and the percussion section just play randomly whenever they feel like it.
Yeah.
And we still expect the result to be this beautiful, harmonious music.
And it's not. It's just noise.
It's biological chaos. It just doesn't work.
And the cost of that internal discord, that biological chaos is, it's absolutely devastating. It goes way beyond just feeling a little tired. Chronic circadian disruption is now linked directly, and I mean causally, to a truly alarming list of serious health issues.
Oh, absolutely. It's increased risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease.
And that's not all. It's neurodegenerative diseases, depression, cognitive decline, accelerated aging, and even certain cancers.
The human cost is maybe clearest when you look at the populations that are most affected by this chronic misalignment. So think about roughly 20% of the industrialized workforce?
Right.
The night shift workers? They are chronically forcing their biology to run backward. They face significantly elevated risks for nearly every major category of disease because they are perpetually misaligned from the natural light-dark cycle.
And the stakes are also incredibly high for disruptions that seem, on the surface, pretty minor.
Like daylight saving.
Exactly. Think about that simple 1-hour shift required for daylight saving time. That seemingly minimal change in time correlates directly with a measurable, significant spike in the incidence of heart attacks, strokes, and even fatal car accidents in the days immediately following the shift.
That 1 hour matters. It matters a lot.
So our mission today is clear. We are going to conduct a deep dive into these hidden rhythmic clocks. We really need to understand how they work, starting from, the master conductor in your brain and then zooming all the way down to the genes ticking in every single cell.
So that you, the listener, can stop fighting against this deep-seated evolutionary wisdom.
Exactly. The knowledge we're going to uncover should allow you to work with your biology, giving you the power to optimize, pretty much everything. When you schedule high-stakes tasks, when you eat, when you exercise, and critically, when you should time essential medical treatments.
It's all about translating that ancient genetic wisdom into actionable, modern practices for health and performance.
We've established that there are thousands of these clocks ticking all across the body. But for this to be a synchronized system, not just chaos, there has to be a central conductor. So where is this maestro, and how does it keep everything in order?
The conductor is a part of the brain called the SCN, which stands for the suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Okay.
It's physically a tiny structure. It's a bilateral cluster of neurons located deep within the brain, right above the optic chiasm in the hypothalamus. It contains about, 20,000 neurons.
20,000 sounds like a lot, but in the context of the brain.
It's minuscule. To underscore just how small that is, those 20,000 neurons represent only about 0.00001% of your entire brain's neuronal count. Yet, despite its diminutive size, its influence over your entire physiology is, well, it's absolutely massive. It is the central, authoritative timekeeper.
So the SCN's main job isn't just to keep its own time, but to coordinate all those other clocks and, most importantly, sync them up with the outside world, the 24-hour day. What's the crucial input it uses for that?
Light. Overwhelmingly, it's light. The SCN is essentially a highly sophisticated, dedicated biological light detector. But the way it detects light is what surprises most people. It doesn't rely on the rods and cones that you use for conscious, image-forming vision.
So the visual system has its own separate path that bypasses the normal pathway for sight, and its only job is to set the clock.
Precisely. These are what we call intrinsic photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, or iPRGCs. They contain a specific photopigment called melanopsin, and their sole function is to register light intensity and send that signal directly to the SCN.
And it's not just any light, right?
Right. Crucially, this system is exquisitely sensitive to a very specific, narrow range of light, the blue wavelengths, specifically between 460 and 480 nanometers. And this isn't arbitrary. That specific light signature corresponds to the color temperature of the bright overhead daytime sky.
Okay, so let's trace that cascade. Morning light hits these melanopsin cells. What are the immediate signals that flood the body and kick off this day mode sequence?
The SCN instantly gets the signal. High-intensity blue light. It is day. Time for mobilization and activity.
Right.
This triggers a rapid synchronized response throughout your entire system. The first and most crucial step is the acute suppression of melatonin production, which immediately halts the chemical signal for sleep.
So it's like flipping a switch.
Exactly. And simultaneously, it triggers a rise in your core body temperature, which helps to ramp up cellular activity. Cortisol, your main wakefulness and energy-mobilizing hormone, surges dramatically in what's known as the cortisol awakening response.
And that's what makes you feel alert.
That's what gets you going. Your alertness is quickly ramped up, and your body shifts into peak operational status, preparing everything for the day ahead.
So conversely, as evening approaches and that powerful blue light signal fades, the system has to smoothly transition to night mode.
Exactly. The absence of that high-intensity blue light is the signal for the transition. Melatonin production is triggered in the pineal gland, which promotes drowsiness and signals to the brain that the active phase is ending.
And your temperature starts to drop.
Right, your core body temperature begins its necessary decline, which is a crucial precursor to falling asleep. Cortisol levels drop off rapidly, signaling the end of stress mobilization. Your metabolism prepares for rest and deep repair. And we see this shift everywhere. Even your immune system changes its focus, moving from active defense to, nighttime surveillance and cleanup.
Now, we've talked about syncing with the outside world, but this is where the intrinsic part gets really fascinating. If you were completely shielded from all external cues, no light, no clocks, nothing, the SCN wouldn't just stop. It has its own rhythm.
It maintains what we call the free running period. It's got its own natural cycle length, independent of the sun. And interestingly, for the vast majority of humans, that internal clock is not exactly 24 hours.
It's a little bit longer.
It tends to run slightly longer, typically averaging between 24.1 to 24.3 hours. This is like the foundational data point for the entire field of chronobiology.
So that slight difference means that if we stayed in that hypothetical cave, we'd naturally delay our internal schedule by, 6 to 18 minutes every single day?
Precisely. And that's why we need what scientists call Zeitgebers, time givers, every single day, particularly light, to reset the clock and pull it back to exactly 24 hours. This daily recalibration is a process called entrainment. It's constant work.
And if you miss your morning light signal,
your internal 24.1-hour clock just starts drifting later.
So why did we evolve this slightly longer than 24-hour timing? Why not just react to the sunrise every day?
It gives us a huge adaptive advantage. Anticipatory regulation. Life requires prediction, not just reaction.
Right, you want to be ready for what's coming.
Exactly. If you waited for the sun to physically rise over the horizon, to start mobilizing energy and raising your core temperature, you'd be operating too slowly in those early morning hours, which would put you at a disadvantage. The internal clock allows your body to anticipate these predictable environmental changes. The cortisol surge, for example, begins hours before you ever open your eyes.
So it's a pre-programming.
It's pre-programming. This ability to prepare your digestive system, your immune system, your motor cortex before the stimulus arrives, it just makes the whole system far more efficient, resilient, and ready to meet the challenges of the new day.
We set up the SCN as this neural conductor, synchronized by light. But let's zoom in now to the smallest possible scale, the 24-hour engine itself. How do those 20,000 neurons, and for that matter, every cell in the body, actually generate time? What is the molecular engine creating that relentless rhythm?
The rhythm is generated by this exquisitely elegant and self-sustaining mechanism. It's called the transcription translation feedback loop.
Okay, break that down for us.
It's essentially a precise molecular dance. Specific genes activate, their protein products build up, and once those proteins reach a critical level, they circle back and suppress the very genes that created them. That's what sets the 24-hour cycle length.
That sounds simple in principle, but I imagine the players involved are pretty complex. What are the key genes in this mechanism?
The core mechanism involves 4 main categories of genes and their proteins.
Yeah.
You have the activators, or what we call the positive loop, and that consists of KLO-SIC and BML1.
Okay, KLO-SIC and BL1 are the activators.
Right, and then you have the inhibitors, the negative loop, which consists of the period family, so PR1, PR2, PR3, and the cryptochrome family, CRY1 and SRY2.
Okay, so walk us through the precise 24-hour cycle, starting with that positive loop during the day.
It begins early in the day. The activators, those CLO-SIC and BML1 proteins, they bind together to form a complex. This complex then enters the cell nucleus. Once it's in there, they act as what are called transcriptional factors.
Meaning they turn other genes on.
Exactly. They attach to specific DNA sequences, and they activate the transcription of the negative loop genes, PER and CRY. This is the start of the cycle. And as the day goes on, the messenger RNA for PER and CRY gets translated into their actual proteins out in the cell's cytoplasm.
So the concentration of these PER and CRY proteins is just steadily rising throughout the late day and into the evening. How does that high concentration then trigger the negative feedback?
As evening moves into night, the PER and CRY-free proteins build up, and they form a complex with each other. A key step here, which helps regulate the precise timing, is that these proteins get modified. They get a phosphate group added, which changes their stability. And once this tertiary complex hits a critical threshold, it has to get back into the nucleus.
And once they successfully get back inside the nucleus.
That's where they exert their power. The tertiary complex physically binds to and effectively shuts down the KLO-C Keyman L1 complex.
So they put the brakes on their own creation.
They put the brakes on. The cell stops actively producing the inhibitors.
So now we're in the night phase. The brakes are on. What happens that allows the whole thing to restart 24 hours later?
This is the third crucial phase, degradation. While production is shut down, the existing PER and CRY proteins that cause the inhibition are slowly and steadily targeted for removal by the cell's machinery.
And the speed of that breakdown is what sets the timing.
That's the key. The kinetics of this degradation process, how quickly those inhibitory proteins are broken down, is what defines the exact 24-hour length of the cycle. So by dawn, the levels of PER and CRY have dropped low enough that they release the KLO-CKB, the ML1 complex, from inhibition.
And then CLO-CK and BMAL1 are free to start the whole cycle over again.
And it begins anew, immediately.
It really is an elegant molecular dance activation, accumulation, inhibition, and then this controlled degradation. And this beautiful mechanism is what earned the 2017 Nobel Prize, proving its universality, first in fruit flies, but showing it's conserved across nearly all life.
The fact that it's conserved across species, from algae all the way to humans, it just speaks volumes about how essential this is. But what's so vital for you to grasp is that this entire molecular clock mechanism is not just in the SCN.
Right. This is happening everywhere.
This exact KLO-C, BMAL1, PER, CRY system is replicated in virtually every single cell in your body.
So these are the peripheral clocks you mentioned, the liver clock, the muscle clock, the fat tissue clock.
Precisely. Every major organ, every tissue type is keeping time locally. But remember how we said the free running period is a bit longer than 24 hours?
Right, they drift.
They would drift. If all these peripheral clocks were left to their own devices, they would quickly get out of sync with each other and with the SCN. So the SCN has to act as that master conductor, using these powerful systemic signals hormones like cortisol, neural signals, subtle changes in body temperature, to continually coordinate and re-entrain all of those thousands of peripheral clocks.
And the final piece of this puzzle is just the incredible scope of this regulation. We're not talking about a niche function that only controls sleep.
Not at all. The direct output of these core clock genes is staggering. Studies show that they regulate somewhere between 40 to 50% of all other genes expressed in any given tissue.
Half of our genes are on a timer.
Basically. To illustrate, in your liver, the clock dictates the rhythmic expression of enzymes for glucose homeostasis, cholesterol synthesis, detoxification. In your muscle tissue, it regulates genes involved in glucose uptake and mitochondrial function. This means a massive foundational portion of your entire physiology is rhythmically rising and falling throughout the day, all under the direct control of this molecular timer.
The idea that half our physiology is on this pre-programmed schedule means we need to get very specific about what is happening and when. So let's try to map the body's temporal landscape, starting with core body temperature. You said researchers use that as the most stable marker of internal time.
Core body temperature is the anchor. It follows this highly predictable, smooth curve. It peaks in the late afternoon, typically between 5 and 7 p.m., and it's at its lowest point in the deep of night, usually around 4 or 5 a.m., right before that cortisol response kicks in.
And that temperature peak has dramatic implications for physical performance, right?
It's a direct correlation. That late afternoon peak in core temperature corresponds with peak physical and athletic capability. Your muscles are warmer, they're more elastic, enzymes are working at peak efficiency, reaction times are faster.
That's why so many Olympic records are broken in the afternoon or evening.
It's exactly why. It's when your body is biologically optimized for output.
And the reverse is true for initiating sleep. We need that temperature to drop.
Absolutely. To initiate and maintain sleep, your brain has to see a decline in core temperature. This is mostly done through vasodilation. Your body pushes warm blood out to your hands and feet to cool the core.
And that's the paradox of taking a hot bath before bed.
It's that elegant paradox. The warming isn't the sleep signal. When you get out of the bath, your body triggers this rapid, profound, compensatory cooling effect, and that steep temperature drop is the signal that helps pull your brain into sleep.
Beyond temperature, hormonal regulation is maybe the most dramatic evidence of this control. Let's talk about the inverse relationship between melatonin and cortisol.
They are perfectly orchestrated opposites. Melatonin production surges in the evening darkness, peaking around 2 or 3 a.m., providing antioxidant protection and signaling for sleep. During the day, it's nearly undetectable.
And cortisol does the exact opposite.
The exact reverse.
Yeah.
It crashes at night to allow for rest, but then it has that massive surge in the early morning, the carreric, to mobilize glucose and wake the body up. It peaks just before you wake, then slowly declines all day to its lowest point in the late evening.
And it's not just them.
Oh no. Growth hormone pulses primarily during deep sleep, which is essential for cellular repair. Even your hunger hormones, ghrelin, the hunger signal, and leptin, the satiety signal, they fluctuate based on your body's anticipated need for energy.
Let's focus intensely on metabolism, because this part of chronobiology just fundamentally changes how we should view food.
This is a critical area for health. The time you eat dictates the metabolic processing of that food. Your peripheral clocks in the pancreas and the liver mean that your insulin sensitivity, your ability to efficiently process glucose, is highest in the morning, and it just degrades throughout the day.
And the data on this is really compelling.
It's incredible. If you take the exact same 500-calorie meal and you eat it at 8 a.m. versus 8 p.m., the late evening meal generates blood sugar spikes that are significantly higher and stay elevated for much longer.
So the liver is essentially trying to shut down for the night, and we're just forcing it to do this emergency sugar processing job.
Precisely. The liver, governed by its internal clock, is trying to activate detoxification and repair pathways at night, not glucose disposal pathways. So forcing it to handle complex carbs at night leads to metabolic inefficiency and stress. And this temporal misalignment, this chronic late eating, is strongly linked to increased visceral fat, weight gain, and insulin resistance, even if your total calories are the same.
Now let's talk about the cardiovascular system, where these rhythms dictate a truly dangerous window every single day.
This really needs more public attention. Your heart rate, your blood pressure, even your blood's ability to clot are all tightly regulated. Blood pressure naturally dips significantly during sleep, but in the hours leading up to and right after you wake up, there is a pronounced morning surge in blood pressure.
And it's not just the pressure.
No, This surge is coupled with increased sympathetic nervous system activation, higher levels of platelet aggregation factors, and decreased fibrinolytic activity. Long story short, your blood is stickier and less able to dissolve clots.
And that combination creates what you call the danger zone.
Yes. The period between 6 a.m. and noon is demonstrably the most dangerous time for your cardiovascular system. Data consistently shows that heart attacks and sudden cardiac death are about 40% more likely during these morning hours than any other time of day. It's a direct consequence of this biological preparation for activity.
The immune system must also be on a strict rhythm to patrol and repair effectively.
It is remarkably rhythmic. White blood cells and pro-inflammatory cytokines exhibit strong circadian rhythms. Immune cells are generally more numerous and circulate more actively in the bloodstream at night, conducting surveillance and initiating elimination.
And that nighttime activity is why fevers spike at night.
Exactly. It's why inflammatory responses are often strongest in the evening, leading to peaks in pain and fever at night, and why conditions like arthritis can be at their worst when you wake up in the morning.
Does this rhythm influence medical interventions, like how effective a vaccine is?
It does. It dictates immune responsiveness. There are studies, particularly with the flu vaccine, that have shown that a morning administration results in a significantly stronger, measurable antibody response compared to an afternoon administration. The immune system is just biologically primed to react more robustly at certain times of the day.
Shifting to the brain, cognitive performance isn't a flat line either. We all feel the dips, but what are the specific peaks for different kinds of thinking?
Cognitive function is complex. General alertness and sustained attention typically peak twice, late morning around 10 a.m. to noon, and then again in the early evening. Short-term memory and, sequential logical reasoning are generally strongest in the late morning.
And that post-lunch dip is real.
It's a real circadian trough in alertness, and it happens even if you skip lunch entirely.
But what about the surprising idea that creative problem-solving can actually be better during those low points? Why is that?
It comes down to inhibition. When you are highly alert, like in the late morning, your prefrontal cortex inhibition is maximized. You're focused. You're thinking in a linear way.
Okay.
When you are slightly less alert during that afternoon dip or late at night, this inhibitory control is reduced. This allows for more associative thinking, letting your mind wander and connect seemingly unrelated ideas, which is the engine of creative insight.
So do your taxes at 11 a.m., but brainstorm your new business idea in the mid-afternoon.
That's a great way to put it.
Finally, let's cover cell division and DNA repair. This really highlights how critical a coordinated clock system is.
Cell maintenance is rhythmically controlled. The lining of your gut, for instance, peaks at cell division during the day. Skin cell division, however, peaks at night when the risk of UV damage is zero.
So repair can happen safely.
Right, and the DNA repair mechanisms themselves are also rhythmic. Some enzyme systems are designed for high-volume, rapid repair during the day, while others, more nuanced and thorough, peak at night.
And the life or death implications of this timing were shown so stunningly in cancer research.
Absolutely. The foundational mouse study with chemotherapy demonstrated this perfectly. Researchers gave the exact same dose of a chemo drug to mice, but at different times of day. They found that timing the treatment to align with the mice's healthy tissue circadian cycle, so protecting the healthy cells affected survival rates by up to 40%.
40%.
The difference between life and death for those animals was literally the time on the clock when the medicine was delivered. It proves that protecting healthy tissue through timing is just as important as attacking the cancer.
So we all share this fundamental 24-hour cycle, but it's obvious that not everyone's clock is set to the same local time. This brings us to the whole concept of chronotypes, the larks and the owls.
Chronotype is a fundamental biological difference. It is your individual, genetically based variation in circadian timing that determines your preferred sleep-wake times and, crucially, when your internal physiological peaks happen.
Larks wake up early, sharpest in the morning. Owls struggle to wake up but hit their stride later in the day.
Exactly. And we have to emphasize, this is not a choice. It is not a preference for staying up late.
It's not a moral failing.
Not at all. It is hardwired into your cellular mechanics. Owls don't just like sleeping in. They have genuinely later-timed rhythms. Their melatonin onset happens later. Their core body temperature minimum is phase-delayed. Their whole body is on a later schedule.
And one of the most fascinating patterns is how this shifts across our lifespan.
This shift is so predictable and tied directly to development. Children typically start as little morning larks. Then starting around puberty, there is this dramatic, biologically mandated shift toward an extreme evening chronotype.
Teenagers are just wired to be owls.
Inherently. This peaks around age 19 or 20. Then, slowly but surely, throughout mid-adulthood and into later life, there is a gradual, inevitable drift back toward being a morning type.
And this shift just highlights the profound problem with modern school schedules. We are forcing adolescents who are biologically nocturnal to perform complex tasks at their absolute circadian low point.
It's a systemic biological mismatch with enormous consequences. When a high school starts at 7:30 a.m., for that teenager, it's the biological equivalent of a fully rested adult's 4:00 a.m. Their melatonin levels are still high, their core temperature is low, their prefrontal cortex is basically offline.
And the result is chronic sleep deprivation.
Widespread sleep deprivation, which impacts grades, mental health, and dramatically increases risks like drowsy driving accidents.
And the evidence for changing this is just overwhelming.
It is definitive. Studies across multiple school districts that shifted start times later, even by just 30 to 60 minutes, show clear, measurable benefits. Students get more sleep, test scores improve, absences go down, and there's even a measurable decrease in teenage car accidents linked to fatigue. It's a clear, successful intervention.
And for adults, this misalignment shows up as what we now call social jet lag.
Social jet lag is probably the most common modern form of circadian disruption. It's the difference between your biological sleep timing, when you sleep on a free day, and the rigid schedule imposed by work.
So it's the classic owl forced to wake up at 6 a.m. during the week.
Right. And their body wants to sleep until 9 a.m. So they build up this massive sleep and rhythm debt all week, and then they try to catch up by sleeping in late on Saturday and Sunday.
Which is like flying a few time zones east every Monday morning and then flying west every weekend.
That abrupt weekly shift just disorients the SCN and desynchronizes all the peripheral clocks.
Right.
And social jet lag is strongly correlated with a higher BMI, increased risk for metabolic syndrome, higher rates of depression. Evening chronotypes are the biggest sufferers in a society that's structured for larks.
You mentioned genetics earlier. What specific genes give us clues about our own predisposition?
The field is moving fast, but one of the best studied is the PER3 gene. It comes at different lengths. Individuals with a longer version of PER3 tend to be morning types, and they perform better on cognitive tests in the morning.
And the shorter version?
Those with the shorter PER3 variant are strongly evening types. Variations in the CLOCK gene also contribute. So your chronotype is truly an inherited biological trait.
So for the listener who now recognizes they're an owl trapped in a lark's world, what is the practical application here?
First, recognize this as a biological predisposition, not a character flaw. Second, optimize your life around your chronotype where you can. If you are an owl, trying to schedule a high-stakes meeting at 8 a.m. is setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Schedule your deep focus work for when your clock naturally peaks.
And advocate for flexibility.
Advocate for flexible work or school schedules. And remember, while your genetics give you a strong push, consistent, powerful Zeitgebers, especially that morning light, can help pull your rhythms a bit earlier, even if you are a trait owl.
We've mapped the ideal rhythm, but now we have to confront the reality of modern life, which is often just a systematic chronic attack on these internal clocks. Let's start with the most severe mismatch, shift work disorder.
Shift work forces the body to constantly violate its biological programming. The worker is trying to be alert and focused when every systemic melatonin, temperature, cortisol is demanding sleep.
And then they try to sleep during the day when the biological signals are screaming, wake up.
It forces the SCN and all the peripheral clocks into this impossible desynchronized state.
We touched on the risks, but let's go into detail, particularly why night shift work is linked to cancer.
The health risks are vast. Profoundly increased rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease.
Yeah.
Regarding cancer, particularly breast and prostate cancer, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the IIRC, has formally classified night shift work as a probable carcinogen.
That is a staggering classification. What's the precise mechanism driving that increased cancer risk?
The key mechanism is the chronic suppression of melatonin. Melatonin is a powerful oncostatic agent. It inhibits tumor growth. It's a strong antioxidant. When workers are exposed to bright artificial light all night, they chronically suppress this crucial nightly melatonin peak. They're effectively removing a potent protective factor.
So it's more than just sleep.
Much more. Shift work also disrupts DNA repair genes and increases systemic inflammation, creating an environment that's conducive to cancer. And the crazy thing is, less than 10% of shift workers ever fully adapt, especially since most revert to a normal schedule on their days off. They live in a state of perpetual jet lag.
Speaking of jet lag, when we rapidly cross time zones, we're actively forcing our SEN to lag behind or jump ahead of the external environment.
Rapid time zone crossing jet lag is a profound, acute temporal misalignment. Your SEN still thinks it's midnight when the local time is demanding activity at 6 a.m. The symptoms are well known: fatigue, poor concentration, sleep fragmentation, digestive issues.
Because the gut clock is on a different schedule.
The gut and liver clocks are completely out of phase with the brain, and the direction of travel matters a great deal.
Remind us why westward travel is easier than eastward.
It goes right back to that free running period of 24.1 to 24.3 hours. Since our internal clock is naturally programmed to run a little long, it is biologically easier to delay your clock, which is what you do when you travel west and lengthen the day, than it is to advance it, which is what happens when you travel east and compress the day.
So going west is working with your natural tendency.
Exactly. Eastward travel requires a forceful phase advance, which is physiologically much harder to do. The rule of thumb is roughly 1 day of recovery per time zone crossed, with eastward travel taking even longer.
And the chronic neurological impact of jet lag is sobering. It's more than just temporary fatigue.
Studies on people with careers that require constant time zone shifts, like long-haul flight attendants, show measurable structural consequences in the brain. Researchers have documented reduced gray matter volume in the temporal lobe, including the hippocampus, which is the center for memory. So chronic circadian disruption can lead to tangible, measurable impairment.
Finally, let's address the most pervasive and insidious threat, the one that affects almost everyone: artificial light at night.
ALAN is the modern enemy of circadian health. We evolved where night meant profound darkness. Now we are constantly immersed in light, and specifically, the exact spectrum of light that our SEN is most sensitive to.
The notorious blue light.
Exactly. Smartphones, tablets, computers, TVs, they all emit high levels of blue wavelength light. This blue light is maximally stimulating to those melanopsin-containing cells. The SEN registers this signal as powerful daytime, preventing the crucial transition to night mode.
And the data is very specific on this.
Oh, it is. Exposure to blue light for just 2 hours before bed can suppress your nightly melatonin spike by 23% and delay your entire circadian clock's phase by about 90 minutes.
And that delay immediately pushes your sleep later, which compounds a social jet lag problem the next morning, and it just perpetuates the cycle of debt.
And that chronic melatonin suppression has implications far beyond sleep. It's tied right back to that increased cancer risk we discussed. Epidemiological studies show that women living in areas with higher levels of outdoor nighttime light pollution have statistically higher rates of breast cancer.
And one of the most sobering discoveries is that it doesn't even take bright screen light to cause metabolic harm.
This is a breakthrough finding. Recent studies have shown that sleeping in a room with light as dim as a small nightlight, just 5 to 10 lux, can significantly impair your glucose metabolism the next morning compared to sleeping in complete darkness.
Wow.
Subjects sleeping in that dim light showed higher after-meal glucose peaks and increased insulin resistance. It indicates that our core metabolic processes need absolute darkness to do their nightly maintenance.
And the final disruption is just chaotic schedules, even if you aren't a shift worker.
Consistency is paramount. Going to bed and waking up at wildly variable times confuses the central SCN clock, and chaotic mealtimes desynchronize the peripheral clocks, especially the liver and gut. The liver, getting food signals at random times, just struggles to stabilize its cycles. Consistency and timing, even more than immediate optimization, provides the foundational stability your body requires.
The vulnerabilities we've discussed make a strong case for active intervention. And chronobiology isn't just a descriptive science, it's prescriptive, giving rise to chronomedicine, this revolutionary idea of timing medical treatments for maximum efficacy and minimal toxicity.
Chronopharmacology is based on the principle that drug dynamics, absorption, metabolism, excretion are all highly rhythmic. The target tissues themselves have rhythmic sensitivity, and the disease state is also rhythmic. If you prescribe a drug without considering the time of day, you are essentially gambling with its effectiveness.
Let's look at some high-stakes examples, starting with common blood pressure medication.
Given that blood pressure surges dangerously in the morning, which we identified as that critical cardiovascular danger zone, taking certain types of blood pressure meds at bedtime provides far superior control over that morning surge compared to taking them in the morning.
And clinical trials have shown this works.
Repeatedly. Bedtime dosing of these medications significantly reduces the incidence of major cardiovascular events like heart attacks and strokes.
What about something like statins for cholesterol?
Statins are a textbook case. The main enzyme responsible for cholesterol synthesis, HMG-CoA reductase, is most active at night. So statins are typically prescribed for bedtime, ensuring the drug's peak concentration lines up precisely with the body's peak synthetic activity. You get maximum effect with a smaller dose.
But the most innovative application is chronotherapy, especially for cancer treatment. How can just timing a chemotherapy drug double survival rates?
It exploits the temporal differences between healthy cells and cancer cells. Healthy cells retain tight circadian regulation of their division and repair. Cancer cells, however, often lose this control and just divide constantly.
Okay.
So by timing the chemo administration, often with programmable pumps, we can deliver the drug when the patient's healthy cells are less vulnerable to the toxicity while still hitting the unregulated cancer cells hard. This can drastically reduce side effects and increase efficacy, leading to those dramatic improvements in survival we saw in the mouse models.
Beyond drugs, does the clock matter for physical procedures like surgery?
The data is increasingly suggesting it does. Research into elective cardiovascular surgeries indicates the procedures done in the afternoon may have better outcomes than morning surgeries. This might be related to the heart's intrinsic repair mechanisms peaking in the afternoon.
Fascinating.
Similarly, studies have noted that wound healing appears faster for daytime surgeries, which aligns with the nocturnal peak of skin cell division and repair.
And finally, the need for time-of-day specific diagnostic testing.
This is a fundamental flaw in current medicine. If a biomarker is rhythmic, its level is meaningless without a temporal context. Cortisol is the prime example. Its level is naturally high in the morning and low at night. If a lab takes a sample at 4 p.m. and compares it against a broad, normal range, they could easily misdiagnose a normal afternoon trough as abnormally low.
So we need time-specific reference ranges.
We absolutely require them for any diagnostic test involving a rhythmic biomarker.
All right, now for the application. For the listener who wants to synchronize their internal system, what are the most powerful, actionable steps they can take, starting with the number one lever?
The single most potent tool you have is light management. Light is the chief conductor and synchronizer of the SCN.
How do we harness it correctly?
You need bright light exposure as early as possible, ideally within the first hour of waking. This is non-negotiable for setting your clock. Outdoor light, even on a cloudy day, is vastly superior to indoor light.
Because of the intensity.
The sheer intensity. Direct morning sunlight can be 50,000 to 100,000 lux. Your office light might be 300. If you can't get outside, a dedicated bright light therapy box, 10,000 lux for 20 minutes while you have breakfast, will deliver the necessary signal.
And the opposite has to apply in the evening to let that melatonin rise.
Absolutely. The critical rule is evening darkness. Avoid bright or blue light for 2 to 3 hours before your desired bedtime. This means dimming your environment dramatically. Use warm-colored bulbs. Activate night mode settings on all screens, though dimming the light is more important than filtering the color.
And the bedroom needs to be a cave.
An absolute cave. Use blackout curtains, cover every tiny LED light. Even that little bit of dim light can metabolically disrupt your sleep.
The next foundational step is consistency, directly attacking social jet lag.
Maintain consistent timing. Your SCN craves predictability. Go to bed and, critically, wake up at the same time every single day. Yes, including weekends. This regularity stabilizes your circadian phase.
Let's integrate meal timing, focusing on time-restricted eating.
Time-restricted eating helps keep the peripheral clock synced. You want to get all your caloric intake within a consistent 8 to 12-hour window that's aligned with your active phase, starting a couple hours after you wake up and ending in the early evening.
And the cardinal metabolic rule, avoid eating late.
Finish your last meal 2 to 3 hours before sleep. Late eating guarantees metabolic stress and harms sleep quality. And furthermore, front-load your calories. Research shows eating a larger breakfast and a smaller dinner, even if the total calories are identical, leads to significantly better glucose control because you're matching food intake to your body's peak insulin efficiency in the morning.
How should we time exercise?
For general circadian health, morning or early afternoon exercise is great. For peak performance, the late afternoon is optimal. However, you must avoid intense exercise within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime. The temperature elevation and sympathetic activation will actively fight your body's attempt to cool down and initiate sleep.
Melatonin is so often misused. Let's clarify its strategic use as a timing signal.
Melatonin is a phase shifter, not a sedative. If you want to advance your clock to feel tired earlier, you need a low dose, 0.5 to 3 milligrams. It's enough taken 5 to 6 hours before your desired new bedtime.
Not right before bed.
Taking it at 10 p.m. to fall asleep can actually push your clock later over time. For jet lag, you take it at the destination's target bedtime to help signal the new night.
And the other chemical disruptor, caffeine.
Mind the half-life. Caffeine has a half-life of roughly 5 to 6 hours. If you drink coffee at 4 p.m., half the dose is still circulating at 10 p.m., blocking sleep. A hard cutoff at least 6 hours before bedtime is essential.
And finally, temperature control for the bedroom.
To fall asleep, your core temperature must drop. So keep your bedroom cool, ideally between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 20 Celsius. This helps your body achieve that critical temperature decline.
The future of this field seems to promise radical personalization.
We are rapidly moving toward personalized chronotherapy. Imagine systems that use wearables or blood tests to measure the real-time expression of your clock genes. This data would give your doctor your precise real-time circadian phase, allowing them to prescribe treatments based not on the wall clock, but on where your body clock is right now.
Knowing your biological time, not just local time, would revolutionize medicine.
It would eliminate so much guesswork. We're also seeing a growing recognition of the link between these rhythms and longevity.
Tell us more about circadian clocks and aging.
Evidence suggests a hallmark of aging is the weakening of circadian rhythms. They lose amplitude, become less robust. This decline is linked to fragmented sleep and poor metabolic health in older adults. So interventions that strengthen these rhythms, like bright light therapy and consistent eating times, show strong promise as anti-aging strategies.
And this science must inevitably influence public policy and environmental design.
Absolutely. Chronobiology demands a societal redesign. We need widespread adoption of later school start times. Workplaces need flexible schedules and circadian-appropriate lighting systems. Bright, blue-rich light during the day, warm, dim light in the evening. Urban planners must reconsider light pollution.
And finally, the critical link between rhythm and mental wellness.
Circadian disruption is now widely recognized as a major contributing factor to, and often a symptom of, severe psychiatric conditions like depression and bipolar disorder. Because of this deep connection, targeted chronobiological interventions, like bright light therapy and social rhythm therapy, are proving to be powerful non-pharmacological tools for managing mood disorders. The core message of this deep dive is, I think, very clear. We are temporal creatures. Every cell in our body has been engineered over billions of years of evolution to live in perfect rhythm with the rotating Earth. And the chronic, willful disruption of this deep-seated rhythm extracts a serious, measurable, and often fatal toll.
But understanding chronobiology is profoundly empowering. You are not a helpless victim of your modern schedule. You now know the key levers, light, consistency, and timing, that allow you to align your daily behaviors with the deep-seated wisdom encoded in your own biology. It allows you to recognize that your capability and your health exist in a temporal dimension that must be respected.
And that recognition is the first step toward reclaiming optimal health.
The science shows beyond any shadow of a doubt that your body knows exactly what time it is, down to the molecular level. The crucial question now is whether you, armed with this knowledge, will listen to it. Your health, your happiness, and your longevity depend on respecting the temporal dimension of your existence. So start by simply spending the next week noticing. Notice when you are naturally sharpest, when you feel that energy dip regardless of lunch, and when your body genuinely starts demanding rest. That small act of attentive observation is the first essential step toward aligning yourself with your deepest biological truth.